Today I'm going to show you a super easy tutorial for making this stunning, elegant necklace. I know, it might look a little complicated at first glance, but don't let it fool you. This technique is actually beginner friendly, and once you try it, you will see how simple it really is. This stage is called tubular netting with beads. There's a simple hollow version, and then there's the one I'll be using today, the filled version. The filled tubular netting uses slightly larger beads inside the structure to give it volume and shape. That way, the necklace holds beautifully and doesn't collapse over time, which can happen with the hollow version. So for me, the filled option is definitely the way to go. Let's talk about what materials you will need to make this. If you have one, start with a bead mat. It keeps the beads from rolling all over your table and makes things so much easier. Then we need some beading thread. I'm using my favorite Fireline 0.12mm in crystal. It's the thread I use the most often in my projects. You will also need a beading needle. This one is size 12. And of course scissors. For the filler bead, I'm using these 6mm pearls. And for the seed beads, I have Preciosa size 11.0. But don't worry if you don't have exactly the same ones. That's the beauty of this stitch, you can easily adjust it to different bead sizes. If you have 4mm pearls instead of 6mm, just use fewer seed beads in each segment. It's super flexible and adapts really well. For the clasp, I'll be using 2 eyepins, and I like to hide the ends with bead caps. If you are using 6mm pearls like I am, a 40mm cap works perfectly. Of course, you will need some pliers. I'll be using my split ring tweezers, flat nose pliers, round nose pliers, and side cutter. Optionally, you can also use the looping pliers if you enjoy working with them. I personally love using mine. I also bought this amazing magnetic clasp. It's super strong because the magnets are large and sturdy. I'll be using it to finish the necklace, but feel free to use whatever clasp you like. Toggle, lobster, anything you prefer. Alright, so I cut a piece of Fireline, around 150 centimeters is ideal length. It's still easy to work with and not too long. You don't need to go overboard with the length because this stitch uses quite a bit of thread anyway, so we will end up adding more a few times no matter what. I thread my needle and start with the foundation row. I pick up one pearl, one seed bead, one pearl, one seed bead, one pearl, and one seed bead. These beads will create a foundation row. I slide them down. I leave a tail about 6 inches long because then I need to weave the thread in. Now I go with my needle through all these beads again, like this. Now I want to secure it. So what I like to do is I like to make a knot. Just like that. The foundation is now super secure. And I go with my needle through this seed bead. In the next row, I'll be working with seed beads only. I need to create little loops over the pearls. Within this bead size, what works well is picking up 4 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then one center seed bead. And then another 4 seed beads. 1, 2, 3, and 4. In total, I'm picking up 9 seed beads each time. So my thread is coming out of this seed bead, and I want to make a loop right here, so I go with my needle through the next seed bead. Like this. I pull tight. That's the ideal number of beads. But if you are using a different bead size or your seed beads are slightly larger or smaller, the total number might be different for you. Just remember this. Always need one center bead and then the same amount of beads on each side. So if your sizes vary, just adjust the count to make sure the loop looks similar to this. See how mine is slightly raised? It doesn't lie completely flat. And there's no visible thread. That part is super important. Okay, next I do exactly the same. I pick up 9 beads. And I go with my needle through the next seed bead. Pull tight. And again the same. 9 seed beads on my needle. And I need to step up. That means I don't go only through this seed bead, but I go through 1, 2, 3, 4 seed beads and this center bead. So my needle is coming out of this center bead. Now it's time to add filler beads again. So I pick up one pearl. My thread is coming out of the center bead and I go with my needle through the next center bead. It looks like this. And again the same. I go with my needle through the next center bead. And the last one through, only just through the center bead. It's starting to take shape, it's already looking really pretty. The whole idea behind stitching a beaded piece like this is that we alternate between 2 rows. One row with filler beads, in this case the pearls, and the next row made only with seed beads. And we'll just keep repeating this pattern in loop. I will show you how it looks as we go along. Okay, here's another 9 seed beads. And I go with my needle through this center seed bead. Pull tight. Another 9 seed beads. And go with your needle through the next center bead. And the last 9 seed beads. Go with your needle through the next center bead. And get a needle to the right position coming out of this center bead. It looks like this, and this is the right time to add some pearls again. So we add 3 pearls. Always go through the center seed bead. And here we go again, you already know the drill. Now it's time for another row of seed beads, followed by a row with the pearls. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, this project uses a lot of thread. As you can see, I've stitched this little section and it used up pretty much the entire 150 centimeters of thread. So now I'm going to show you how to add a new one. What I like to do is leave the original thread in place for now. I don't weave it in just yet. First, I add a new thread and only then do I secure the old one. That way I can clearly see where the original thread was coming from. So I cut a piece of new thread. Again, it's about 150 centimeters. I thread my needle. I go with my needle anywhere under the thread between the beads. I make a knot. And leave a little bit of tail. Go with your needle through a couple more beads. Make another knot. And pull tight. Go through the beads again. Follow the original thread path. I make another knot to really secure it. And I need to get my needle to the starting position. Okay. Now I take the original thread, I thread it on my needle and weave the thread in exactly the same way. Just follow the original thread path. And make some knots to secure it. Now I have these two tails and I can trim it off. And now with the new thread in place, I can keep going without any issues, just like it was the original one. So I've reached the desired line for the necklace, and now it's time to attach the bead cap and clasp. I finished with the row where I add only seed beads, no more pearls from this point on. Then I stitch the end together through those center seed beads, just like this. The reason I do that is so I can later hook the eye pin right through the center. And now I just weave the thread in. You know the drill. Go through a couple of beads and make some knots. And cut off the excess thread. We will do the same thing on the other side. Since we started with pearls here, we still need to add one more row with seed beads. We will make the same loops using 9 beads, just like before. You already know the process. And again, sew the center beads together. I take an eye pin and slightly enlarge the loop because it's a bit too small. I hook it through the end of the necklace, going right through the center. Then I add a bead cap. Using my pliers, I create a loop and attach one part of the magnetic clasp. I close the loop and then wrap the wire around to secure it tightly. I trim off any excess wire and gently press it down with pliers to make sure there are no sharp edges and everything blends together nicely. Then I just repeat the same process on the other side. And here's the finished necklace. Just look at how beautiful it turned out. I absolutely love how the pearls give it such an elegant touch. And because of the filled tubular structure, it keeps its shape perfectly. It's one of the pieces that looks much more complicated than it actually is, right? If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a like and let me know in the comments if you are planning to make one too. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new beading video. Thanks so much for watching, happy beading, and see you in the next one!